All right, I'm going to try to do this in one take because every other video has cuts and pauses and ums and ahs, and the whole reason behind sitting down and documenting once a week was to just be authentic in that process. So this is one take. This has been a bombshell of a week. You can see there's mess everywhere. I need to pee right now. There's cleaning behind. There's washing machine going. Anyway, it's one of those realities of building behind the scenes. And this is Monday Diaries. Monday Diaries is really just me sitting down once a week and talking about the process of life and building a new business, one that I launched 4 weeks ago. As it stands, we have about $50,000 in annual recurring revenue. Very clear proof of concept. I'll talk a little bit more about it at the end, and I could actually be giving away a fairly large chunk of the business, which I'll touch on. But yeah, like I said, I want to challenge myself to sit down and get this all out in one go. So here we go. I got a few notes just in case I lose track. Yeah. So the only other thing that I'll also touch on at the end is I made probably the largest investment I've ever made. Yeah, come through. To date, and it's not business related. And I'll tell you how I got to it, what it is, and then in a future video, I'll go into depth because it's probably a video in itself to dedicate to that. But that one was very impromptu, off the cuff. Didn't plan that until the weekend. But let me backtrack a bit. Basically, I'm reflecting on the last week. I was down south, a few hours south of Perth, which is where my family live. By family, I mean my mum and my dad, 3 of my younger siblings, and my other 4 siblings kind of live abroad. Flynn, my brother, lives below me here in Perth. My 2 sisters are over east, or they have been over east for some time. So they've just flown in. It's the first time our whole family's together in like a year. And we had all our partners there. There was like 15 people staying in a house. So it was that usual chaotic thing, which you could probably see with a few of these videos I'm overlaying over the top right now.
All right, so we're here with the Howard family. We're playing cross net, trampoline, tent, ice bath. Everything's happening here. Bocce, have a look over there. Come back here, come back. Welcome to the Howard Family Games.
Hey, Raph, you want an apple? Yeah.
Yeah! Get in the apple, get a ball!
This is what big brothers are for. Oh! It's pretty much touching the dartboard.
Guys, 1, 2, 3.
You know, we grew up in that chaotic household, and that kind of made us who we are. So, okay. So one big thing that happened this week is my favorite podcast, or one of my favorite podcasts, had Tony Robbins on as a guest. And Tony is a name I've been hearing since I was very young. My parents consumed a lot of his stuff. They went to seminars of his, and he's the highest paid coach and speaker in the world, essentially, life coach. And when I listened to the podcast, it was sort of re-entered my world, and I got inspired and just went deep down the Tony Robbins rabbit hole, and realized that he had a live event coming up in a few days from that point. So the live event is, he gets like 1 million people. It's a free event. He usually does seminars that cost lots and lots of money. And the issue was it was at 3 a.m. Perth time. So 3 days in a row, if I wanted to commit to it, I had to get up at 3 a.m. Perth time. And I decided to do it. But not only that, I convinced half of the family to do it too. So I've got some footage I'll overlay here as well. But basically, we made it through 2 days, and then we realized there's actually a replay, so we didn't have to get up for 3 a.m. the next day. But yeah, my 2 younger brothers, younger sister, my mum and my dad on different days, and my partner, Alina, we all got up and just drank cacao and watched this thing and got pumped up, and all the Tony Robbins things. And I just wanted to touch on a few of the key takeaways from that live event, because there were so many. I've got pages of notes here from to go through, but a few things that stuck out to me. One, he talked a lot about identity and limiting beliefs. I think that's relevant to everyone in their life, let alone whether they're in business or not. But one concept was this internal thermostat, which is, if you think about in a house, you might have a thermostat and it's set to 22 degrees Celsius at all times, and say the thermostat started to drop, right? Like say it started to get cold in the house, and think about your own internal thermostat. Say you started to drop below the level that you're used to being at and vibrating at, and you get to 18 and 16, 15, and suddenly your body's like, hold on a second, I need to figure something out. I need to pull my finger out my ass and I need to get back to 22 because that's what I'm used to being. That's I'm not a 15 degree guy. I'm a 22 degree guy. And so you rise to the level of your standard. And the same goes the other way. Say you're doing a lot of self-development work and you're pushing beliefs and you're pushing your ceiling, and you get to 25, 26, 27, 30 degrees and you're firing and everything's good. Your body oftentimes and your mind will regulate and pull you back down to the 22 if you believe you're a 22 degree kind of guy. So super fascinating to think about it in that sense, because it's your identity at the end of the day, and you get to choose, but it's solely about pushing those and working through those to get a higher baseline, to be a 24 degree guy and believe you are, and then be a 30 degree guy eventually. So it's a work in progress always, but it was such a nice reminder and a nice analogy to be thinking about identity in that way. So that was a good one for me. Another thing that stuck out was this concept of doing something not to get, giving not to get, but just giving and doing something because it's right. And he used the example of someone that had been to one of Tony's seminars when he was 23, and he'd done a bunch of work at that point. And there's this young guy who's 17 who, Tony was 23, this guy was 17, who had come to a seminar, and he just loved real estate. And he was like, Tony, I want to be a real estate agent. I love this space so much. I'm 17, I can't get my license yet, but I just want to be in this space. And Tony was like, great, it's cool to see you're so passionate about this. And so the kid eventually turned 18. He spent 6 months as a real estate agent and just trying to make it work. He was in quite an affluent suburb at the time, and no one trusted the kid. He was 18, too young, too inexperienced, and no one trusted him. So he came to Tony and he said, look, Tony, no one trusts me. Like, how can I make this work? And Tony said, your brand ultimately is the things you do. You become known for being a certain kind of person. Maybe you're always the one to put others first. Maybe you're the compassionate one. Maybe you always show up and you put in 100% no matter what you do. And he said, consistently keep showing up in those ways and don't expect anything in return. And you'll be rewarded for it. Not that it's about the reward, but you will be. The law of reciprocation. And anyway, hold on, just checking. I'm still recording. Yeah. What this guy ended up doing was he realized there was this need in his community, the area he serviced, and there was this trash strike at the time. So the garbage trucks weren't going around, and for 6 weeks, trash had been sitting in front of people's lawns and probably affecting their day, right? They get home to their nice houses, and there's trash on the lawn in front of them. So he came to Tony. He said, Tony, look, I think I have an idea of where I can give back. This is going on. I think I can hire a private company and come and clean up all the trash. And Tony's like, it's a great idea. You should do that. And he says, yeah, and then, I can put a little letter in the mailbox and say, it was, this was me that did this. I hope this helps. And Tony says, no, don't tell people it was you. Just do it because it's right. And the guy was like, okay, went away, and he did it. And it cost him $30,000 or $40,000 of his own money at the time to clear this neighborhood of trash, and didn't expect anything in return. And what ended up happening were conversations were started, and there were, people in the community talking to others and being like, oh, I think I saw a private trash company, and where did this come from? And eventually linked back to the guy somehow, the young guy. And they called him up and they said, hey, can we pay you for the service? Thanks so much for doing this. What can we do to help you? And the guy goes, no, the trash clean, that's on me. That's I don't expect you to pay, but I'm a real estate agent in the area. If you ever think about selling your house, or you have a friend who does, just think of me first. And that was it. And what ended up happening was over 18 months, he cleared $1.1 million in profit in his real estate business as a result of that good faith. So that was such a timely lesson too, and something I think a lot about. Another thing Tony says is, if you're not willing to give 10 cents of the dollar that you have now, you're probably or definitely not going to give away the 100,000 of the $1 million that you have in the future. 10% of whatever it is. And that's resonated so much with me, because I'd always thought, at some point when I have more means to, when I've created enough wealth to give back, I will in a really big way. And I've always wanted to have that impact. But it's the reminder that if you're not doing it now, you won't do it in the future. So find ways to do that in the day-to-day, but also if you want to support charities or causes, do it now, because now is the right time. So that was a big lesson that I got out of that, that landed for me as well. I'm just going to check if that camera's still recording. Okay, we're good. It dies all the time. The batteries last like 10 minutes, so just had to check. Okay, what else was I going to say? There was one last story about this nickel guy. So basically Tony's writing a book. He's just written a book that's releasing in the next few days, I think. And he interviewed some of the 15 wealthiest people in the world, billionaires, and to understand how they built wealth. And through that journey, there was one guy in particular who had really outstanding compound interest returns. And he told a story about how he was on the search for an investment opportunity that had no risk and only upside. And he just asked himself that question for many, many, many months and years. And what's something that has no risk but only upside, which is very hard to come by if it even exists? And he finally figured something out. He said, at the time, the Federal Reserve of wherever he was from was printing nickels, 5-cent coins, that actually cost 11 cents to make. This 5-cent coin in the cost of the metal that it was made from. And he realized this, and he knew that he could buy nickels, and if all else failed, he could melt them down and sell at a 30% profit from what he bought it from. And yes, it's illegal to melt down money in that way, but there's loopholes and ways he could have done it if he really needed to. So he was like, I have no downside, only 30% upside minimum, let alone what I think will happen to pennies, which, if anyone else remembers, eventually they skyrocketed. They became like this collector's item, and then many people wanted to pay a lot more for a penny. So he was like, I think this is going to happen to nickels. I have no downside. How many nickels can I buy? And he went to whoever it was and said, how many nickels can I buy? And they said, well, millions probably. And so he went and bought millions and millions of these nickels. And that story spoke to me a little bit, maybe too much, because I went on and I believe I found an investment of sorts that had effectively the same result. So that is... Yeah, I'll tell the story now. Basically, I was down in Augusta, and I'll do a whole video on this because I think it probably deserves one. But I have... How do I start it? I never thought I would say this, but I bought a car, and I grew up in, my dad reading Rich Dad Poor Dad and telling me cars are liabilities, never buy a car, buy assets. And I can't believe I'm saying that I believe a car is an investment, but it is an old car, one that holds significant value over time. And when you know enough about these cars, it's also on my vision board. So maybe that was the justification I gave myself. But when you know enough about these cars, and if you see a good deal, it's a fairly low risk investment because you can sell it and not lose money. In my case, I was down in this little country town where my parents live, and I stumbled across this car, and I just wanted to inquire because it was on my vision board. I was like, look, I may as well have the conversation and see more about it. And I won't tell the full story because I want to go in depth in a new video, but essentially I saw an opportunity to buy a car at under the market rate, 25% under roughly, and bring it back up to Perth, if I decide I want to keep it and use it, then yes, it becomes a liability, not an investment. But that's a decision I can make, or I flip it at some point and essentially make $10,000 instantly overnight because the market's riper up here. It's worth that. And it was just a situation where it was an old guy that owned the car. He'd had it for 22 years since new, and it was in incredible condition. He knew my grandparents. There was this trust that was built. It was a timely thing. I saw it the day it came up. So anyway, I bought a car that has been a dream of mine for a long time on my vision board. And yeah, it's that was an interesting story inspired by the nickel guy that Tony spoke about. And maybe it opens up this whole world of like old car collectors and buying and selling old cars. Then maybe that's a calling of mine. But no, I'm pretty happy with what I'm doing. Last thing I'll say on this video, I think we've been running for 15 minutes here, is I touched at the start of the video, giving away a percentage of my business. This is happening. It's been drafted. It's not technically finalized, so I can't give all the details just yet. But essentially, Evan is the name of my new co-founder, so to speak, and he's flying out to WA in a few days, and we're just going to do a 3-day intensive, just talking about strategy and values and kind of ironing out, dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's, and making sure it all makes sense. But essentially, that is for Art of Mondays, which is the thing I launched 4 weeks ago. It's a private, highly vetted network for lifestyle founders to come together in virtual spaces and in-person co-living spaces and jam out and build cool things together. So Evan is coming on board to really take it to a level that I could do myself, but in a much longer period of time, and that's why I see value in it. And I also like working with people. I think it makes it more fun and exciting and dynamic, and ideation is a lot more ideas come from it. So that's the messy update from me this week. I'm going to go and show you some behind the scenes of what's been happening when Evan comes over, and I'm off to Cape Town in not long after that. So I'll be able to show you guys behind the scenes there as well. I'm going to talk more about the car. Heaps of stuff coming. I'm going to cut it here so I don't bore you guys. But thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoy this, consider subscribing, because then you can hear more about my journey as we grow the business, as I grow in life. And I hope you start fucking with Mondays too. Peace.